Quite frequently, we'll just switch to Willem Dafoe quotes. I know. Hi, I'm Oliver the Ricketts.
I'm Brittany.
I'm Jeremy Kessler.
And I'm Marco and Bernardo. Is that the one I'm going with?
And this is a very exciting day.
Oh, it fucking is.
Because Spider-Man Far From Home is out. And any day that there's new Spider-Man in my life is a great day. And I'll start by saying we saw this movie last night spontaneously.
Not all
We,
of
as
us.
in Oliver.
Half
and
of
I.
us.
Half of us, yeah.
This side of the car has seen it already.
The right side.
That side
The
has
good
not.
side.
And I'm very upset at Oliver for doing that to me.
Yes, it was a personal attack on you.
My special boy wanted to see it.
I'm a little upset too.
But I've done nothing but think about this movie all day. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I won't say just yet. I will preface this by saying that Spider-Man is not just my favorite comic book character, but my favorite fictional character of all time.
As you've seen from our many other videos, these two won't shut the fuck up about Spider-Man.
It's not just the videos. We've just sat down in cars and talked about Spider-Man for a very long time.
Friends in cars talking about Spider-Man.
I was not a huge fan of Spider-Man Homecoming. I recognize that there are a lot of people that really like the movie, but a lot of things about it did not work for me. I didn't like a lot of the background characters, and I think that's a really important part of telling a good Spider-Man story. And I thought it relied too heavily on Iron Man. And the movie does not give you a Spider-Man scene. I've watched it again. The other complaints I have maybe take more of a back seat, but the fact of the matter is there's no good Spider-Man sequence in that movie. And so that's upsetting, and especially because I don't think there's been a Spider-Man movie that I've been 100% absolutely insane about in live action since Spider-Man 2. So, I was really excited about Spider-Man Far From Home because it had Spider-Man and that will always get me, and because it looked like they were going to do a lot of really cool stuff with Spidey actually, being a superhero and acting heroic in the movie, which is something that I think has been missing for a long time.
I love Spider-Man. I don't have as much to say about how much I feel about Spider-Man as Oliver does. I just need to get out there that I absolutely love Spider-Man. I feel like putting this more into context of Marvel Cinematic Universe rather than Spider-Man as a whole. I feel like Endgame happened, and that was very much a final chapter, and I was really ready to take a break from the MCU, maybe superhero movies as a whole, but I was really ready to be like, okay, I don't need anything else. I'm not really going to get excited about much else. And really the only one that could have done it for me again this soon after Endgame was Spider-Man. And boy, here I am. I'm so happy. I'm very ready. I want to go see this movie.
I'm not like a huge fan of Spider-Man. I love the PlayStation game. I thought it was very true to the comics. That's what I feel a lot of the movies have been lacking for the most part, is that they're kind of like, they kind of stray from the comics a little bit. I'm hopeful for this. I love Mysterio as a character, as a villain. I do agree with you that I'm kind of having like a bit of a, an MCU hangover at this point, where it's kind of just like, it's just been so much at this point. It's, we kind of need a break. I liked Homecoming. I didn't love it. I don't even know how to even like word it. It was just something was just off about it.
As the person in the car who likes Spider-Man the least, I suppose, I was very curious to see what they would do this time around, because I also didn't really enjoy Homecoming. I thought it was too hipstery. I thought it was too new. It didn't really have the charm that you feel when you think of Spider-Man, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and being, from New York, all of us, and I'm from Queens, I wanted more of that, down home kind of, this is a kid you went to high school with vibe, and I didn't get that because Tom Holland is beautiful, and I just, don't feel like, oh, he's dorky, and
He was a
therefore
nerdy
Spider-Man.
loser in high school. Yeah.
My hope for this one was that they would do more aside from just be, a hipstery kind of teenage, rom-com sort of thing. And I was excited to see Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio because this is his introduction into the MCU. So I was curious to see, how that all turned out. I've already seen the movie, so I'm trying not to touch on too much. But those were my expectations before going to the movie.
I actually really did enjoy Homecoming. I'm the only person in here that did.
I'm just so surprised it took this long to get to Mysterio, because he's in the original volume. He's in the original 12 books. He's one of the big Spider-Man villains. And I guess part of that is because up until now it's been pretty unfilmable.
We're going to go see the movie now. Please join us afterwards to talk about it.
See you guys in a couple of seconds.
Hi. What?
You didn't warn me or anything.
But you know now. So, I preface this by saying that Homecoming was not my favorite thing under the sun. And I think one of the main reasons for that was that I felt it didn't deliver on two fronts. I still feel like this movie is not exactly where I want it to be, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. And it definitely delivers on some good fucking Spider-Man moments and some really great sequences. And I had such a fun time with this movie last night, and I had an even more fun time with it tonight. You know, I can't knock it for that.
If you've watched a lot of Ride Home reviews, you know that I'm not good on the spot at expressing myself when I enjoy something. And that's just a preface that I had a really good time. I really enjoyed this movie, and I don't really know what else to say.
I agree with what you say, Oliver. I definitely think this is a step in the right direction. Is this a perfect movie? No. I do see some minor faults. I do think the things that they did right, they really did right.
I'm not the biggest Spider-Man fan in the world, but I actually enjoyed the movie too. It was humorous. The second act is definitely a lot better than the first. First act is very like John Hughes' teens go on vacation kind of movie, but the second half is actually like Spider-Man Marvel action and fun, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
I definitely think that one of my biggest negatives of this thing is that the opening drags, and it doesn't just drag, it takes a long time, to where when I was first watching I was like, you know, I'm a little disinterested in this. I know they're trying to make it that it's a teen movie because Spider-Man is still in high school, but what they did here was they set out to make a teen romantic comedy that really did not feature Spider-Man that much. And while we're focusing on the comedy, while I thought some of it was very funny, a lot of times the humor in this movie falls on its face flat. But when there's a certain point in the movie where it hits, and past that, the movie is everything that it should be, in my opinion. Or everything that it can be with what they've set up for this Spider-Man, because I still object to a lot of things about the character. I'm not a big fan on a lot of Peter's motivations. I don't think that they give him enough problems. Because in this movie, it's a kid having the time of his life. He's got one issue, and that's his girlfriend. And while that's definitely should be an element, I like seeing a Peter Parker that has more shit going on. However, the one issue that they do give him, they play up very well, and they use the dual personality to do that, where it's, I want to be with the girl that I want to be with, but at the same time, I'm Spider-Man and I'm stuck and I can't do that, and that's never going to change for me. However, the girl in question is Zendaya, and it's not even a thing about her. I hate how she plays this character.
I agree with the humor. I think some of it was good, but then there were often times where I was kind of just like, really? Like, it just didn't hit. It really wasn't all that funny. It was kind of awkward at times. I also agree with how Zendaya is playing the character. The way she is as MJ in like the beginning of the movie completely changes at one point, to where she goes from being this like super emo, like brooding teen, into just like a regular old girl who's just like super cool about everything. And it was kind of just like, oh.
I was thinking about this today, and the last movie I said they went out of their way to make her unlikable, which is already an issue because Mary Jane is supposed to be a cool girl that you want to hang out with. That's why he wants to date her. But if you remove that and you say, well, it's not the same character, fine, I want him to have a love interest that I can get behind. I think, yeah, that's a relatable person. So this movie, it starts with her being unlikable, and it goes as far as to make her awkward, to the point where I'm thinking like Asperger's, or there's something wrong, because she's like, they make her a character that doesn't know what to say when, and is equally as dorky as Peter. And I guess I just reject that premise that because Peter's kind of a dork, he can only date a dork.
Especially because I feel like the MJ character is always presented as like the cool girl and like out of his
The
league
preppy
entirely.
cheerleader.
But like in this, it's like very like, okay, well, it's obvious that this is who they're gonna put him with because this is the only female that he has interaction with that he's even remotely like on his level.
You miss the whole aspect of she's out of my league, I could never be with
No.
her, but she's in love with Spider-Man.
It like doesn't even seem to matter to her, Spider-Man, at all.
Right.
You know, like she's too cool for all of that.
Right.
But really, she's not cool. She's just a dork. And
if you want to have a character who's too cool, that's great for a background character. You can't have one of your main characters be too cool like that because it's not relatable. One character who I do think they do better with here, although I still object to some issues, Flash Thompson.
I had a feeling you were gonna say yeah.
In the last movie, I felt like, again, he's got no right to be beating up on Peter. He's just as fucking dorky, and there's nothing
if
about
anything,
him.
he's even more of a loser. And I feel like they like really hone in on that in this movie.
Right. This kid will never beat Peter Parker up. You can't make this fucking kid Venom. That's what I will say is they are smart with how they set him up as a bully in this one. Because they make him more of just kind of a dick.
Yeah, he's just a dick, yeah.
And he was a dick in the first one, but it was almost unbelievable. This
And
one,
it
he's a
wasn't
rich
really-
boy.
And it wasn't really directed at Peter for the most part. He was just kind of a dick in general, like it just like unliked, you know?
Right, obnoxious. That's
Yeah.
what he was.
If anything, the character of Brad was more
Flash Thompson.
Flash Thompson than anything, yeah.
Right.
Because he really like had something out for Peter, but he had it out for Peter because he wanted to get with MJ.
Right.
And he knew Peter was a threat.
Which again is Flash Thompson. And having it directed at everybody, I think works because then he's an obnoxious kid,
He's
and
just
I
an
don't
asshole.
have to see him as Peter's bully. But the angle that he doesn't like Peter is still there, and the obsession with Spider-Man is still there, which I think is also something that's really interesting that I like. It takes Spider-Man a very long time to get on screen in this movie. And when he is on screen, they're doing my least favorite thing with him, which is, oh, you're going to be the new Iron Man now. Are you going to be the new Iron Man? On one hand, that does get under my skin. But on the other, what I think this movie does really well is it takes that idea that he even could be the new Iron Man and it says, no, you can't do that. Just because he has Tony Stark's gadgets and Tony Stark's things and people are associating him with another superhero, he's still operating on his own and doing his own thing. And even the plot line with Nick Fury, it just shows that he, as Peter, operates better as a solo agent, does his own thing. And he, kind of the point he comes to in the story is, no, I can't be Tony Stark. I don't even know if I can be an Avenger.
Right.
And I'm all about that angle. I think you could take the whole Spider-Man world, keep it connected, keep it that it takes place, but you could separate that a little bit and just have it kind of stand on its own, and I'd be totally fine with that.
I'll go ahead and say the fight scenes were just spectacular. I won't go into the details yet, but very, very true to what I felt Mysterio would be like and what I imagine him to be like. And I mean, I'm not too big on the comics, but I have played a lot of the really early video games that have Mysterio in it, like the Game Boy games and shit. And even those fight scenes were just weirdly exactly true to form in how it played out in the movie. And so that I just thought that was spectacular.
And as far as Mysterio goes, this is the Steve Ditko drawings just put on the screen.
Yeah.
This is what I was reading as a little kid. This is those scenes are everything.
I thought that Jake Gyllenhaal did such a great job as Mysterio. I mean, he was really captivating, and it was my favorite when he was on screen. I really enjoyed that aspect probably the most out of the whole movie. I also really enjoyed Martin Starr as his teacher.
Martin Starr is great.
And just like their whole interactions with the class, I actually thought that all of the secondary characters were really, really good in the movie, and I felt like they really had a nice synergy together.
Yeah.
And you could tell that they definitely had a good time while they were filming it as well.
Tom Holland and Jake Gyllenhaal have a very nice back and forth
Yeah,
going
I
on.
agree.
and I really, really like that relationship, actually. As well as much as I'm not big on the character of Ned, I do think that all the kids get along very well, like you're saying, and I think that it works in the lens of this is a different character from me. But I guess this is the Spider-Man that we're going with, so it has to work for me. Still would prefer Harry Osborn.
I really enjoyed this movie. I liked it better than I thought. I mean, I did have to see it 2 nights in a row, which wouldn't have been my first choice. I liked it. I liked Jake Gyllenhaal. I liked Tom Holland. It was pretty much all good for me. So, yeah, I'll give it an A-. I'll go with an A- on that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think the acting was incredible. I think Tom Holland is a great actor. Do I necessarily agree with how he is as Peter Parker? But I do think, you know, his emotional scenes are great. Jake Gyllenhaal was great. Fight scenes are great. I'll definitely watch this again. Maybe even try to see it in theaters again. Probably not tomorrow night, but...
What do you mean you don't want to see it 2
I'm
nights
only
now?
because I'm working. I, too, give it an A-. In no way do I think this is a perfect movie. It has some minor faults, but I do think it is a great movie.
Yeah, Spider-Man. I just had a really good time, you know? I really enjoyed this movie. I'm gonna give it an A- as well. I'm gonna hop on that train.
Don't do it, Oliver.
All right, then here we go. Okay, first half of this movie is so majorly flawed, and I was so worried as it was going along that this was going to be another Spider-Man movie where I would voice my opinion and then people would tell me that I was wrong. Which is, you know, it shouldn't matter, but it's also very frustrating when this is literally the piece of fiction that I like the most in the whole world. However, somewhere in the middle of this movie, there is a click, and then it's Spider-Man moment after Spider-Man moment, and it's all working so well that you forget about all the other shit. And maybe if it's not my Spider-Man, that's okay, because something about this worked so well. And I've been thinking about it since yesterday when we saw it, and I'm probably going to think about it for a long time after. I can't even believe the amount of shit they're able to do with him now. Yesterday it was teetering between a B+ and an A-. Today it's an A.
Cool. Okay, spoilers.
Spoilers.
Mysterio is evil.
Mysterio's evil.
What?
Guys. What?
In the worst
What do you
kept
mean?
secret. Okay, what the fuck is with Marvel and ripping off the fucking Incredibles? Mysterio's goddamn syndrome.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But you know who else's syndrome? Fucking Aldrich Killian from Iron Man 3 is also Syndrome. There are so many similarities because his plan is exactly Syndrome's plan in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because
That is, yeah, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it.
that scene in the fake bar,
The heel
after-
turn.
yeah, the heel turn. That heel turn, especially when he just walks out, and then you just look at Jake Gyllenhaal and he goes, and that's how easy it's done. I mean, could have so easily been like absolutely ridiculous and, and ugly, but it was so good and so like, holy shit, like what is happening right now? And that whole speech that he goes on, I mean, again, could have easily like droned on, been like, what the fuck are you even talking about? Like, you know, ridiculous, stop talking, we don't care. But it was so captivating. I can't think of any other words other than enthralling and captivating, and magnetic. And I just like was like wowed by it. I remember, I mean, not as much last night, but even tonight, I was still like, wow, that was really good. I loved that. That was the best scene to me in the whole entire movie.
And that's such a testament to how great this cat. First of all, Jake Gyllenhaal's been trying to get in a Spider-Man movie fucking forever.
And he did such a great job. This was a role that could
Yeah.
have been made for him at this
Right.
point. Yeah.
And it's such a testament to what a good actor he is, because not just that scene, there are so many scenes with him in this movie that when you look at it on the page, it probably sounds stupid.
And flat.
Right. And that scene where he's making a toast to explain his evil plan is probably the dumbest thing that happens in this whole movie. But oh my god,
scene
did
of the
they
movie.
fucking sell it.
Yeah.
And even like the little like eye, like we were talking about the one like the eye
I
twitches
missed
that he
it
does.
tonight,
And
and I
the,
was so upset when he goes, I'm Mysterio.
Because you get a vibe. Number one, it works on the levels of the character he's playing, because when you first introduce him, it's like, oh, is this gonna work? Because he's reading his lines flat on purpose.
And I even said to Ollie, I turned to you, literally said to you last night when we watched it, I go, isn't he the bad guy? I was like, I'm not understanding what's happening right now.
Right. And he's doing it on purpose, though. And Jake Gyllenhaal's not a bad actor, but the character he's playing is an abysmal actor.
Very cliche.
So when he's saying things like, I'm from another dimension and my wife died, it's
yeah, and it's funny because you go back and watch it again, and it's just like you're listening to it now, knowing the turn. Not that you didn't know it to begin with.
Yeah, right.
I'm saying that, but listening to it, and then you're just like, wow, this actually does sound like some bullshit, but you're just going with it because this is what's being presented to you.
And he even says, like, this is the kind of shit that you accept in these movies. Yeah, I mean, he says it in real life because that's his reality. My only gripe is that they fucking killed him off at the end.
Whenever they have a good villain, they kill them.
Yeah.
I think that the character actually really did like Peter.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing that Spider-Man films have a really hard time establishing, and that they all want to do because it's how Stan used to tell the stories, is the villain has to be connected to Peter somehow. So to just have it be a guy that likes Peter and, otherwise would have had a good relationship with him, that works for them so well, and it's so simple. I don't know why nobody thought of that. Which is also what they did with Michael Keaton, which is, I think, why the villains have been such a strong suit in both of these movies. And another thing is that that's taken from Spider-Man also. That's a big part of the mythos, is not only are they usually connected to Spider-Man, but Spider-Man existing is usually a big problem for the villains in the comic books. And what they've done is they've swapped that out and put in the Avengers, which I guess makes sense if you're living in a world with a lot of superheroes. I think it's interesting that all of the villains' problems are spawning off the heroes, and they're doing that very well. Having it be Talos is infinitely better than making Nick Fury out to be an idiot. I would have had a really big problem, since he's one of my favorite characters, if they had done that.
But, Mysterio still seemed to be pretty afraid of him, even having it not really be Nick Fury.
But Mysterio doesn't know.
He's not Nick Fury.
I know that. Yeah. So he has to be doing a decent enough job.
Well, he's doing an imitation, and then because Nick Fury doesn't do anything in this movie, it's just hearsay of.
A kid in the neck.
Does he?
Yeah, he shoots the fucking Ned in the neck.
Oh, he does shoot Ned in the neck.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I thought you meant he like straight up murdered a kid.
No, I know murdered a child, and we all missed it.
You have to consider that not a lot of people know about Kree and what they can do. So you meet Nick Fury and you're like, this is Nick Fury, I have to be wary of him. You don't really go out of your way to think about, maybe this is someone else disguised as Nick Fury,
I also think that Mysterio, even though I think there was a surface level of I can't fuck with him too much, did get cocky, and he was saying shit like, oh, he's a paranoid idiot and this, that, and the third, and he really thought he could trick him, which to me says maybe you weren't that scared of him to begin with. But Peter is really scared of Nick Fury, which was interesting, because I like how they're turning it more into, it's not all these superheroes want to work with Nick Fury, he's like pimping them out. And I think another angle that works, having seen it twice, is that not only Mysterio but Nick Fury, you can watch them knowing everything that happened the second time, and it works as a really good twist.
Spider-Man Peter Parker hasn't really matured at all since the first one. And he went through Infinity War, or was Infinity War before or after Homecoming? I don't remember.
If Infinity War is after.
It's after. And then you also
have
Endgame.
And he's in Civil War, too, so...
Yeah. So, you have all these things where he's clearly been through some shit, but he's still making, day one immature mistakes. And I'm not trying to say, I get it. He's still an immature kid, essentially. But, I feel like he's still, he hasn't learned anything.
The big selling thing of Homecoming was Iron Man's here, and he's going to give this big speech to Peter about, well, you are not mature enough to handle any of this.
Yeah.
And Nick, this fucking movie, which, first of all, there's a ridiculous scene in this thing where a drone attacks a school bus. I wish they would have taken that thing out. I hate that scene. And the only payoff of it is that Nick Fury gives the exact same speech that Tony Stark gave him in Spider-Man Homecoming. So clearly he didn't learn that fucking much.
Talos probably found that in Nick Fury's brain and was like, oh, he's insecure about this. Let me just throw it in because it'll make my character seem more genuine. Mm-hmm. How would I know if I wasn't Nick Fury that he's already had this conversation with Tony?
I wish that he wasn't right. You know, because he did call a fucking drone attack on a school bus. And that's so over the top for something to just happen in the middle. And like you say, it doesn't reflect on the character growing. So when is he going to grow?
Yeah.
Although, I do think he grows by the end of this one. Hopefully they can keep the momentum going, because by the end, he's a self-sufficient Spider-Man. He doesn't want to be an Avenger. He's going to do his own thing, and I think that that's great. Although the motivations are a little scrambled, because we've now seen 3 movies with him where all he wants to be is an Avenger, and now all of a sudden from the get on this one is please leave me alone.
Well, because I think he saw after what happened with the snap and whatnot, and it's just like,
this is too heavy.
This
for
is
me.
too much.
The
Yeah.
blip.
Yeah, the blip.
Also, the ending of Homecoming is him saying that I don't want to be an Avenger.
But for Nick Fury to come to him and say, hey, I need help, that also factors into responsibility, I feel like, And for him to have such a problem with that, like, how is that consistent with what you're supposed to do? But I guess he also comes around to that by the end, and he says, I'm just going to handle my shit.
Honestly, I think that first initial fight scene against him and Mysterio, the illusions, and what that ends up with him being hit by the train and all that, it was just unreal. Like, it was...
And all the Spider-Man jumping on him.
It really felt like a video game. And as being the only one, I keep bringing this up, but the PlayStation game, like, the way that game plays, this movie plays out very similarly to how that game plays out.
And it plays out just like the comics. The big thing that happened in any of the action sequences that really, like, made me fucking freak out is we have been waiting on Spider-Sense. And I just, like, it's only 2 seconds, but it's so fucking cool. Yeah. I can't even say anything else about it. And there's that shot where the camera's tilting across the hallway and he's destroying the drones and running at Mysterio. Oh my god. I'm not making sense now, but
I really think overall the moment that Jake Gyllenhaal makes the heel turn is when the movie becomes great.
Mm-hmm.
Everything it should be, absolutely.
Everything following that heel turn, honestly, is just pretty much amazing. The only gripes I have is just, the whole following Happy and the kids storyline.
Yeah, I mean, that plays into that I don't like the kids.
Yeah. I really liked the moment, though, when, in the plane, when Peter starts building his own suit, and then Happy just kind of looks at him, and you just kind of get the parallel of him and Tony.
See, I have mixed feelings, because while I think they're pushing at you the Spider-Man, Iron Man agenda, I think that also plays into what the movie's trying to say in the end, so you still need it.
Well, I don't think that was because the movie wanted you to think that Peter Parker or the Spider-Man was going to be the next Iron Man. I think it's just because Happy as a character missed Tony.
Right.
And that was something that Tony would do. And I think that it made him feel good to not only help Peter, but to
help himself.
Yeah. Okay, I miss him, but, this gives me hope. This makes me look forward to the future.
Even though the image of Iron Man is there, he's still doing this for himself. Nobody's stepping in and doing it for him. And that even works in that scene that it's not, okay, let me fix this for you. It's Happy saying to him, well, what the fuck are you going to do? So,
okay.
The turnaround from Jake Gyllenhaal really gives me a lot of hope for what the next one can be. But also, the the end credit scene, before we even talk about that cameo, is so interesting to me, because I don't know what they can do past that. I mean, you can't use Spider-Man until Spider-Man 3 now. You can't use him until you resolve this. That's such a game changer in what this can be, and yet it's such a Spider-Man comic book moment for him to be up on the lamppost looking at the telecast. And then they fucking throw J.K. Simmons in the fucking movie. I wish you were here last night, because they, the fucking applause
Yeah, good.
was, oh my god. Because I think that's one of the only times I could just accept, yep, it's the same actor, but it's a different universe, because nobody else could be J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah. And I really like the fact that they kind of changed the character slightly to be more kind of just like a podcast.
Right.
Guy.
Well, because they didn't change the character, they changed they changed the medium he's working in. Because Jameson, even when he's working at the paper, is that guy.
Yeah.
It's just now, what if you just never filtered him ever?
I hate to bring it up again, but they actually did do that in
the game,
game.
And that end credit too, I think I thought about that the most today. It's not only because the cameo, and obviously I love the Raimi movies, and that's a big part of them, but just all the concepts that it sets up. I can't wait to see what they do. And we were talking before about, what could make you more interested in the MCU, and for me, with Spider-Man being my favorite character, that's what does it. You gave me this really cool outline for a story, and I do want to follow that.
Oh, I like Spider-Man. Let's take a break.
Spider-Man.
Great. Spider-Man.
Thanks, everybody.